Hello children, how are you all? Hope you all are healthy, happy and fine, safe at your home. Today we are going to deal with tenses, a section in grammar, a very important section in grammar. We are going to deal with the basic fundamentals of tenses, wherein we will just introduce the types of tenses in this session and the varieties of tenses. But before that, you need to know a lot many things that are necessary or essential to form the sentence structure in tenses, and which will help you for the board exams. Two types of questions, one which is gap filling and the second which is editing. So shall we begin? All set? Do you have a pen and a paper handy with you to make notes of the session, of the important points that we are going to discuss? Okay, so before we begin on, let's have a very sound, healthy and a simple activity, right? Yes, let's start with the activity. I've named this activity as gel into and stand out. I've selected this activity because in the current situation, if we relate, there is a shift in the learning procedure, the process. It's not like the regular learning. Yes, you are learning remotely and I am teaching remotely to you. We are not physically in front of each other. It's virtual platform or the digital platform of learning, right? So this activity correlates to this situation right now, and how exactly should we accept it and how exactly should we respond to the change that is happening right now, that will be discussed in this activity. The activity stands like this: gel into and stand out. It start this activity by hydrating a handful of water jelly marbles in a bowl of water. Now you must be knowing small water jelly marbles, which when you put them into water and allow them to absorb the water, they swell after some time. After a particular number of hours, they swell, they double in size, and then they become very transparent. So that is the activity. Start this activity by hydrating a handful of water jelly marbles in a bowl of water. Students, then you have to place your hand in the water and feel what you cannot see. Initially, when the water jelly marbles are small, you know that you have put the water jelly marbles into the water. And of course, the water jelly marbles are transparent right now. They are not colorful right now. Now, the bowl is all transparent. You put in some water into the bowl, then you put in those small marbles inside and then allow them to swell. Now you know that you've put in the water jelly marbles, but you cannot see those marbles in there. Then later on, after a few hours, when the marbles are swollen, you cannot see the marbles. So how will you come to know that the size of the marble has grown up, the jelly marbles? You will immerse your hand inside the jar or inside the bowl of water in which you have left the water jelly marbles for a long time, and then you will check that the size of the marble, which was very tiny, has grown up nearly to 1 inch each. Now from this experiment, one step is done. The second step is, now if you add a few drops of food coloring to the bowl of water and stir it. Right now the bowl is also transparent, water is transparent, and your jelly marbles are also transparent. Now we add in a few drops of liquid color into it and stir it. So the jelly marbles are going to remain transparent and colorless, but the water becomes colorful. And now these jelly marbles become, yes, very easily visible to our eyes. The once invisible jelly marbles now stand out again in the different colored background, right? Now can you relate the different colored background that we have? We are doing the same activity, the learning process, but in a different background right now. This is a powerful way to illustrate how things can be perceived by us. How can you take these changes, this shift in our life right now? This demonstration of the activity teaches us how to become invisible. Just blend off with the surrounding. Just accept the change that is going on. Be easy with it. It will be easy gradually, though not all of a sudden, but gradually. But taking things positively and easily will make the situation work out. The learning, teaching experience a happy and a healthy and a productive experience. But it's equally amazing to see how invisible objects become visible by just changing the surrounding. For example, first you accept the change, you gel yourself into the change. Yes, you become blended into the change, and then you stand out with your perfections, with your extra skills, and then you stand out. So first gel into the surroundings and then stand out, recognizing your own different special efficiencies, proficiencies, or skills. This is what the activity talks about. Gel into and stand out. Do try to implement that in your current process. Now, next slide. Sessions include. This session today is going to include all these things. First, we're going to talk about the persons or the perspectives. That is the first person, the second person, and the third person. We're done with the activity, okay? Now we are getting back to the grammar fundamentals for learning types of tenses, for writing the gap filling and the editing questions in the board exams. So persons and perspectives, then pluralization of verbs. Then we are going to recapitalize the pluralization of nouns, then the forms of verbs, various forms of verbs, then the kinds of verbs. Forms of verbs is MV1, MV2, MV3, the past, the present and the future, all the participles or the gerund forms and all. Kinds would be the main verb, the helping auxiliary and all. Basic fundamentals to make a proper and accurate sentence. Then we'll come down to the sentence structure. Then we'll elaborate the concept of tenses. Why tenses? How tenses? Yeah. And then we'll come down to the introduction of the various types of tenses that we're going to deal later on in the next sessions. Then we have a practice exercise to brush off your knowledge that we've gained in this session. And then we've got a home assignment for you to do at home. Okay. When we talk about persons or perspectives, we are talking about the speaker, the listener, and the topic that has been dealt about in the communication. We are now over here to learn tenses. Tenses is all about learning the language English, which is not native to us. Now, why do we need to learn English? It's just a communication skill which we need to acquire by practice. Now, if we find a little difficulty because English is not a native language to us, to elaborate that aspect of the language, we've got these different elements to the language, the sentence structure. The first is the perspective of the persons. The first person is the speaker. Now, I have to be the speaker for you to be the listener. You have to be the second person and I will be the first person, because the speaker is the first person. And if I am speaking, the first person, you are listening, the second person, and we are talking about the third person, who is the subject of the topic. That becomes the third person. Let's check that out. When one refers to oneself, he or she does it by using the first person. Like we are talking right now, I'm the speaker, the first person. You are listening to me, you are the second person. When the same person refers to a person who is in front of or near him or her, then he or she would address the other person by using the second person. Like when I talk about I myself, I am teaching is the sentence. So I is the first person and I am the speaker. When I talk about you, you are listening. So I use you over there. You are the second person over there, the listener. And the third person is used to refer to persons or the things that are either visible or away from your perception. Like I told you, I the speaker, first person, you the listener, the second person, and the third person, the object, thing, situation or scene that we are talking about would be referred to as a person, third person, right? Now let's see what we have understood from this slide. First, second and third persons are ways of describing the point of view. When we are communicating, when we are talking, passing on our idea or thought through vocal cords, voicing it out, we are using a language, and for that language we are using a perspective. That perspective is considered as the first person. The perspective is when I talk for you, about you, the listener, that becomes the second person. First, second, third are the ways or the point of views of the communication. We are the perspectives. Second person, you is the perspective. And third person, he, she, it, they are the perspectives. When we talk about let's check the sentence formation referring to the first person, the second person, and the third person with singulars and plurals. Let's check the chart over here. First person, singular, I walk, I see, I go. Okay. Second person, singular. Second person, the listener could be singular or a plural. So when I say second person, you walk, you see, you go. It could be one student or it could be more than one listener or the more than one second person. Then third person, he walks, she sees, it goes. See, pluralized. Plural. Now plural form and first person, when the speaker or listener or the third person, the object that is talked about or discussed, is plural. First person is plural, so I have to be there, I must be there. So plural, we walk, we see, we go. Second person, you walk, you see, you go. There's no difference over here. It stands the same like as in singulars. This acts only for present simple or present indefinite tense. That the third person is singular, the verb becomes plural. Pluralize the verb. Third person, they. Now, they is a plural verb. Plural verb and third person. Plural noun and third person. So, they walk, they see, and they go. Clear? You can make a note of it as well while we discuss it. Let's check this set. A few more examples in consideration with the pluralization of the noun and the verbs. Just check these examples. I drive. She drives. I'm the speaker, you're the listener. I'm telling you I drive. Then I'm the speaker, you're the listener, and we're talking about her or third person. So she drives. We drive. You drive, and they drive. Let's form the sentences in there. This example. The dog is, right? Wrapping up. The dogs are, plural are. I am, she is, they are, we are, you are. You can make blackboard notes right now while the screen is on over here. You can take a snapshot reserved for you, and then later on make notes of it for your personal references later on, as in when you require. Next section of the same chart. The dog likes. The dogs like. Plural form, third person, singular verb. I like, she likes, they like, we like, and you like. Just note the differences over there. When the dog is a singular person, the verb is likes. When the dogs are plural, I am the speaker, you are the listener. The dogs are plural. The dogs. The subject is plural. It stands to be like. A few more examples. Now, in case of verbs, pluralizing the verbs, see, let's just revise. How do we pluralize the nouns? While pluralizing the nouns, we ideally do add a S or ES, two letters to the end of the subject. For example, in case of nouns, we pluralize a noun by adding s or es. Singular nouns stand like book and plural becomes books, bwks. Same for box, box becomes boxes. Now, simple present tense or simple present indefinite tense rule, very important rule, stands to be third person singular only and only then you pluralize the verb. Now here the rule says singular form of verb and plural form of verb. See, walks become walk and goes become go. So walks is the singular form of verb and walk is the plural form of verb. It's the exact controversial rule for that we have got it for nouns. We're talking about the present indefinite tense right now over here. Just to remember, we are not getting into the depth of the types of tenses right now. This is just the basics and the fundamentals right now. A recapitalization, revision of your past knowledge. What do we understand from this slide? Check the end of the verbs. Books, boxes, walk, go. Yeah. As a rule, if the letter of the verb is s, it is singular. While if it is not, the verb is plural. Remember that this only applies to the third person, right? In short, the rule that I have mentioned, third person singular, the verb becomes plural. First or second person plural do not have an s. They are identical to singular verbs. That is, they are similar. Identical means similar. Now let's talk about the forms of verb. We are not talking about the kinds or the types. These are the various forms of verbs which are vitally important for you to understand thoroughly to make the basic sentence structure accurately. Accurate English speaking. So first we are going to talk about the base form of verb, which is the basic verb, the word of action, the main verb, which we are going to term it or count it down on as MV, the main verb 1. For example, go, do and take. Next, second one, we are going to talk about past simple form of verb, which we are going to term it as main verb 2, MV2, did, went and took. Past participle form of verb, which we are going to term it as MV3. Examples, done, gone and taken. So if you go through it, summarize this slide, we need to understand that a present participle is a verbal form ending in ing, which actually is just the continuous form of any type of tense, past, present or future, which is also termed as gerund form or the present participle. Once again, a present participle is a verbal form ending in ing used to form continuous or the progressive construction like I am working, or present participle adjectives as in the working woman. Here when we say working woman, actually the verb is being constructed in the form of a gerund ing, but the complete word formation working is used over here as an adjective, working woman. Then the past participle is the third part of a verb, that is write, wrote and written. For example, the future participle does not exist in English. Take a note of it. The future participle does not exist at all in English. Now let's talk about here we've got just a few examples of V1, V2 and V3. V1 is the base form, V2 is the past tense and V3 is the past participle. Just take a snapshot and note them down. These types of main verbs, the word of action, are also called as the principal verbs or the lexical verbs. Here we've got now gradually coming down to the serious or the important topic, the sentence structure. To recollect your previous knowledge, There are two basic parts in a sentence. A sentence is formed with two basic important parts. The first one is the subject, and the second part of the sentence is the predicate. For example, if I take the example as we learn English, in this sentence, we, the word we, W-E-V, is the topic about which we are talking here. So we becomes the subject, which ideally falls at the beginning of the sentence, should rather. And the remaining part of the sentence, learn English, becomes the predicate. The subject of the sentence is the person, place or thing that is performing the action in the sentence, and it is ideally the doer of the sentence, which is not a necessity, but it's ideally the doer of the sentence. The object of a sentence is ideally the receiver of the action. It is not necessary that it has got to be an object, but the object physically an object. The object of a sentence is ideally the receiver of the action. Like over here in this sentence, we learn English. English practically does not receive the action, but it is the object in this sentence. Next example, we know English. See, the subject here is we, know is the verb, and object is English. The simple subject usually contains a noun or pronoun and can include modifying words, phrases or clauses. What do we mean by this now? When we say, refer to the example, we know English, we itself is the subject over here. Now if we is not there, we the students and our teacher, so we is the plural and our teacher is the singular, so all together becomes the subject of the sentence. We the students and our teacher are going to learn English. So in this case it becomes a complicated subject. That is what they are referring over here, the simple subject. A simple subject usually contains a noun or a pronoun and can include modifying words, phrases or clauses. This is what we actually mean by you bringing to the upgraded stages of learning English, the 9th and the 10th standard English. Just a new piece of information over here before we begin on with the real knowledge of tenses. The concept of English. The origin of English is from the Latin word tendere or tensis and then tense. The word tense comes from the Latin word tempus, which means time. Tense, now the definition of tenses. Tense is the time described by a verb. See, it talks all about time and a verb. So there are two concepts included or explained or dealt with in tenses. One is the time and second is the action or the work. Tenses are the rules that tell us when, about the time. When means it talks about the time when the action is be done, and it talks about how much means about the quantity or maybe the quality of the work that has been done. How much of the work is done. Now hitting on to the target. For example, this is a session for tenses in English. So tenses in English, the variety of tenses in English. When we talk about when of the tenses, it talks about time. Based on this perspective of tenses, tenses are bifurcated into three types, divided into three types. The first is the past, then the present and the future tense. Three types of tenses. Past is all that has already happened, and present is the one that we are living right now, going on, and future is the one which is upcoming in the future, near future or far off future. Now next, how much about the work or the quantity? Now how much work? When we talk about tenses with the second perspective, first we dealt with time, second perspective is the work. Work is the word of action or verb. The amount of work that is done, how much of the work is done. Based on that, we've got four type of tenses. The first is indefinite or the simple tense, wherein you do not understand, the idea is not clear, as in how much of the work is actually been done. So that type of sentence, in that we will call it as indefinite tense. It could be indefinite past, present or future. It is also called as simple past, simple present or simple future. Same. Next, you've got the perfect tense, wherein the work is completed, whether in the past, present or the future. It indicates that the work is done. And continuous tense means the work is going on, it's still pending, the work is not yet completed. And continuous tense will definitely have ing form, the present participle or the gerund form, the main verb. Perfect continuous tense is an addition of perfect and continuous tense, wherein the work is done, but it is again repeatedly done, whether in the past, present or future, keeps on doing. We will deal with it in details with a lot of examples to clarify all your conceptual understandings or any doubts if you have, as in how we deal with individual types of tenses. Okay. Having studied all that, we've got these many types of tenses. You can take a snapshot and record these notes as blackboard notes. Past indefinite tense, that is past simple tense. Second type is past continuous tense. Third type is past perfect tense. And fourth type is past perfect continuous tense. Fifth is present indefinite tense or present simple tense. Sixth one is present continuous tense. Seventh one is present perfect tense. And eighth one is present perfect continuous tense. Ninth one is future indefinite or future simple tense. 10th one is future continuous tense. 11th one is future perfect tense. And the 12th one is future perfect continuous tense, which you all know, and we will deal with it with ample number of examples and dealing with comparison between each and other tenses. Having the concept of time work, it's not right now termed as tenses for me. Let's just now blend them off as time and work concept in the form of helping verb while framing a sentence structure. Let's first try to understand this concept. Like you were in the nursery, all the primary ages of learning. When you were in the primary classes, you were having some sort of activity classes. Say for example, karate class or the cricket class. The class was graded to be, the division was graded to be cricket division, or the division was graded to be chess division. Yeah, you had those particular names. Or you had PT houses, red house, green house or yellow house. You were supposed to wear that sort of t-shirts or that sort of uniforms to indicate that you belong to this particular house, red house, green house. Or like the bus, van or self-transport facility which was there for you in the pre-nursery ages. While leaving from the school, you were supposed to indicate on your sleeves or your arms that I will be going by bus, or the child will be going by van, private van, or the child will be picked up by the parents themselves. That sort of housing categorization will be called as present, past and future tenses. If you understand these tenses in this form, it becomes much comfortable, convenient and feels much confident to deal with tenses. Like for example, the identification of present tense will be do, does, is, am, are, has and have. If you see these words in the tenses, it is for sure that it is a type of present tense. Like you wear green uniform, it is for sure that you are from the greenhouse. If you are wearing blue uniform or blue t-shirt, for that house, for that activity, then it is for sure that you are from that blue house. So for past tense, you should see did, was, were and had. These are the simplified ways to understand the tenses, because we are talking about the board exam questions, gap filling and editing, where you need to find out which type of tense is it and accurately fill in the blanks to score all the 8 marks in your pocket. Future tense, pink uniform. See, future, will, shall, will have and shall have. Let's deal with the examples. Ram does study every day. So does is there. It clearly indicates that it is a type of present tense. Then Ram did his studies. So did is there. It clearly indicates that it is one of the category of past tense. Then Ram will do his studies. So we don't know whether this near future or far off future. So right now we just know that will do. So will stands under the category of pink uniform, that is future tense. So it is falling into the category of future tenses. Clear? Now that we all do understand English up to this level, let's try to blend them off, the forms of verb into the main verb and then the type of tenses. For example, MV1, the main V1, we categorize it as the base form of verb, right? The basic, the original verb, main verb, word of action, base form. When you see that base form, it means that the sentence is framed in the indefinite or the simple tense. For example, she goes to school. Does she go every day? Has she gone now? Not sure. It's not quite sure, but it is for sure that it is present tense. So she goes to school. It's a type of indefinite tense, right? You just need to remember this. It's a type of indefinite tense when MV1 is used over there, when the base form of verb is used. Next, MV plus ing, main verb plus ing form. Any main word of action with ing gerund form indicates that it is a type of continuous tense. So if you blend up the previous slide, the content on the previous slide and this slide, it actually includes all the important elements of tenses. Then she is going to school. So going, ing is already there. So it is the continuous form of verb. MV3 is the perfect tense. When you see MV, the third form of verb, that is the participle form of the verb, it does indicate that it is a perfect tense. Maybe of which type? Maybe past, present or future. For example, here you've got she has gone to school. She has gone. So gone, gone. Go, went and gone. Past participle. So MV3 past participle. So when you see the MV1 form, it is the indefinite. When you see the MV1 with ing, it indicates the continuous. And when you see the MV3, it indicates the perfect form of the tense. Now let's check out the forms of the be verbs. Like we have already discussed, there are 8 forms of be verbs. Along with the persons now, various perspectives, various combinations over here. When the first person and the second person and the third person are in the singular or the plural form. First, let's deal with it in the singular form. See, I am, first person, singular form. When second person, you are. And third person, he, she, it is. Then this is all in the present form right now. Then plurals, we are, you are and they are. Then past tense form, first person past tense singular, I was. Second person past tense singular, that is you were. You was, no, you were, always you were. because it is past tense, and I'm talking about second person right now. Third person in past tense, in the singular form, I am listening, you're speaking, and you're talking about the third person, that is in the past tense. So he, she, or it was, right? Singular, past tense, and third person. Now next, first person, second person, third person, plural form in the past tense. See, we were, first person, so I need to be included over there. So we were, you were, and they were. You can take a note of it. Now let's check out the. Now in this slide, let's deal with the kinds of verb. We're not talking about the forms of verb. Here we are going to deal with the kinds of verb. Like we talked about the subject and the object in a sentence. In the sentence, there stands a verb. Yeah, and that verb is supported by supplementary words like linking, helping, auxiliary verbs. Yeah, so based on that element, the whole verb section is categorized into two parts. One is the main verb, which is also called as the principal verb or the lexical verb, and the second is the linking or the helping or the auxiliary verb. To make it simplified, I have termed it into only two categories, the main and the helping verb. These are the different names of the same category: main, principal, lexical, helping, linking, and auxiliary verbs. Now let's talk first of all about the action verb, word of action. Action verbs are words that express action, like give, eat, walk, etc. Or possession, having something, like own or have, etc. Action verbs can be either transitive or intransitive. This is also really important to understand what's a transitive and intransitive verb, which would also help you to select the right gap filling option for board exams. Let's first talk about the transitive verbs. A transitive verb, transition, the word transition itself indicates that there is something passed on. Transit, given away, traveling, moving. So transitive verb. A transitive verb always has a noun that receives the action of the verb called as the direct object. I am writing. I am writing. It does not need a pen and all. So I am writing on a pen or a page. Then the page or the pen or the paper becomes the object receiving the action or the effect of my action done. For example, here it's given as Larissa raises her hand. She just raises her hands. So she is raising her hand. So Larissa is the subject and the hand is the object which is receiving the effect of the action. Raising what? Hand. So the hand is receiving the action. The verb is raises. Her hand is the object receiving the verb's action. Therefore, raises is a transitive verb here in this sentence. The transitive verbs sometimes have indirect objects which name the object to whom or for whom the action was done. Quite clear from this sentence. Example, Abdus gave Becky the pencil. Now see, Abdus gave Becky the pencil. 2, 3 things are there. One, the doer, second, the receiver, and third, the object. Very clear about it. The verb is gave. The direct object is the pencil because the pencil has been in the transition. The pencil is shifted. What did he give? The pencil. The indirect object over here is Becky. To whom did he give the pencil? He gave the pencil to Becky. Now is it clear? Transitive verbs for the direct object and the indirect object. Let's first talk about the. Now, intransitive verb, the verb itself, a word itself indicates that there is no transition, no passing on of the action on the object. That is, the action is done, but the effect of the action is not received by the object over here. The object remains same, or maybe the object is actually not required. The verb is self-sufficient to make a complete, sensible, meaningful sentence without having the receiving end object there. An intransitive verb never has a direct or indirect object, although an intransitive verb may be followed by an adverb or an adverbial phrase. There is no object to receive this action. For example, Larissa rises slowly from her seat. Larissa herself is the subject. She rises slowly from the seat. So it's not required from the seat. So now Larissa rises slowly. Then the verb is rises. The phrase is slowly from her seat. Modifies the verb. It just provides you more information about the verb adverb slowly. Yeah. It is not necessary to have from her seat. It is a complete sentence in itself. Larissa rises slowly. But no object receives the action. The seat is not going to receive the action. The bench is not going to receive the action over there. It is not mandatory here. So, rises is an intransitive verb in this sentence. Now, intransitive. Well, having done with the transitive and intransitive verbs, now let's bang on and move up to the helping verbs or the linking or the auxiliary verbs. Here, the important concept over here is, let's not bifurcate the language too much into variety of types. I have blended it off into helping, linking and auxiliary verbs for better and simple understanding. So let's move on. In English, there are two types of auxiliary verbs. The meaning of auxiliary itself is helping, to support. So the primary auxiliary and the modal auxiliaries. Right now, we're not concerned about modal auxiliaries. So we're just going to focus more on the primary auxiliary verbs. The three primary auxiliary verbs are be, have and do. We all have gone through it already many times. Let's revise the forms of be. Be, being, B-E-I-N-G, and being, B-E-E-N. Have, has and had. Do, does and did. And then we've got 10 types of the common modal auxiliary verbs in over here. Let's revise, note down and remember these types of auxiliary verb, forms of be verbs. Two be forms of verbs: be, is, am, are, was, were, be and being. The forms of the verb be: is, am, are, was, were, be, been, being. 8 forms. The forms of the verb do: D-O, do. Do, does, doing and done. The forms of the verb have: has, having and had. Right? Note it down. Let's blend these forms of be, do and have with the types of tenses first. Let's understand them very easily and slowly in a very simplified way. Present tense will have is, are or am depending upon the singular or plural form of the subject. Past tense will have was and were, for sure, helping verb, and ing form of the verb will have beng, B-E-I-N-G, being. Past participle will be indicated by using the helping verb being, B-E-E-N, and passive we're not right now actually concerned, but let's just have a piece of knowledge at the back of our mind. Is, am, are, was, were plus being will indicate the passive form of the sentence, and has, have and had been will also indicate the passive form of the sentence. Now let's do a practice exercise to summarize, to club up and blend of all the knowledge that we have gathered from this session about the basic fundamentals of tenses. This question correlates to the gap filling question that you are going to answer in your board exams. The first one is you've got to select the correct form of verb. The earth moves round the sun and the sun gives us light. You just need to add s over there. Third person singular, the verb becomes plural, and this is a simple present tense. He always buys lottery tickets but never wins any prizes, right? Then, are you going to school now? Are you going to school now? So first thing, like I told you, just take it easy. You don't need to go through the options as well. You can think it on your own as if you're talking to yourself and your colleague or friend. Simple way. And then if you're getting confused, then go on to the options. Have you done your homework? Simple. Then I have known him for several years. Right? I've known him for several years. I know him. Then because of the word have, you have to mention known, the third MV3, the participle form of the verb known. Sixth sentence, I get your letter yesterday. No, I got your letter yesterday. Then seventh sentence, he come here last Sunday. No, he came here last Sunday, or he had come here last Sunday. Then eighth one, she not bought anything from the shopkeeper. It should be buy, B-U-Y. She did not buy anything from the shopkeeper. Here we can use a contraction over here. She didn't buy anything from the shopkeeper. Didn't buy. She didn't buy anything from the shopkeeper. She did not buy anything from the shopkeeper. Both are correct. Okay. Ninth one. I wash my hands with the telephone rang. I was washing my hands when the telephone rang, because ultimately your sentence should make sense. It should have a meaning which you want the listener to understand your idea or thought behind voicing out that sentence. So I was washing my hands when the telephone rang. Then I shall telephone you when she come back. I shall phone you when she comes back. Very easy, right? I know you could do it. Very good. Now there we go with the practice exercise, which you've got to do it as a home assignment. See, choose the correct form of verb from the bracket. Just read it. Now we don't even need the options to know. The main verb is studied for the first example. Study. Considering the word study, he studied when my uncle entered the room. Check. What should you write it as the answer? We will discuss the answer in the second session of tenses. Second sentence is, I must stay here because I expected a parcel, or am expecting. Check. I don't know the answer right now. We'll discuss in the next session, okay? Then, I see the price of petrol. Go. Go is the base verb. Up again, certainly. Check what should be the answer. The kite, plural, in the sky before it started raining, past tense. The main word of action over here is fly. The kites, check. Then the main word of action here for the fifth sentence is look. L-O-O-K. So I dash look for a suitable task before I caught this one. See, got is the past tense used over here once again. So just check what should you use, which form of look would you prefer in this sentence to make the accurate, grammatically correct sentence for all these 5 sentences. Okay. Now there we go. Now a quick recap of the whole workout of this session. We've dealt with the persons or the perspective, the first, second and third person perspectives. Through which perspective are you talking out, voicing out your thoughts or ideas to the listener. Second point, we dealt with the plural of verbs, how to pluralize verbs. Then third part we dealt with the pluralization of nouns, which we are already aware of it, but we just compared the plural nouns with the plural verbs. Then forms of verbs, various types of verbs, kinds of verbs, and then sentence structure. Then we talked about the concept of tense. Why tenses? Is there really a need of having tenses? Then we talked about just the introduction to the types of tenses. Introduction, types of tenses in the terms of time and in the terms of work done. Then we practiced a few exercises. We discussed the answers as well. And then you got 5 statements for fill in the blanks as an home assignment, the answers to which will be discussed in the next session. I hope you all must have understood the basic concepts or the fundamentals that are required to understand the gap filling and the editing questions which you are going to face in the board exams, and which we are going to deal gradually in the part 2, part 3 and part 4 of tenses sessions. I want you to note down everything and understand everything very properly, revise everything properly, so that it becomes a smooth journey all through the third, fourth and the second part of tenses. Have a notepad and a writing pad handy to make notes of everything, and keep it reserved for yourself for future reference as and when you require. Thank you. Now, thank you, children. Keep learning, my smart learners. Thank you so much, and see you in the second session.